They say the best things in life are free, and that's a lie. There's nothing free about the mixed Mexican-Peruvian platter they serve at my favorite local restaurant, or about spending the night in the company of cereza.
I'm his cereza.
But, my friends, Moonring makes one hell of a case for that BS saying. So much so, in fact, that I unironically believe it is a strong contender for Game of the Year. Welcome to Ye Olde Entertainment, and welcome to another episode of Ye Olde Gamer Recommends. And today, we are going to be talking about an RPG that brings back everything that was awesome about games like Ultima 4, Quest of the Avatar, throws in a healthy amount of innovation, and it wraps the whole deal up in a package made of the best modern-day user experience practices. Someone over on Discord said that he wished he could forget everything about his experience with his favorite game, so that he could play it again just to get all the thrill and excitement again, as though it were the first time. And I understand that sentiment. And well, Moonring managed to do just that for me. It brought back the thrill and excitement that I got from playing Ultima 4 for the first time in the mid-80s, and I honestly didn't think that was possible. Simply because every new game that comes out waters down the impact of every other game that comes after, and RPGs have been around for 4 decades by now. So how did Moonring do it? How did this free-to-play title manage to become one of the most interesting RPGs in the year of Baldur's Gate 3 and highly anticipated indie titles like Colony Ship? Well, broadly speaking, by giving players what they have always wanted from role-playing games. See, it seems to me like most video game development studios approach the making of their games by focusing first on the genre's tried and true mechanics and then go from there, sometimes trying to improve upon said mechanics, sometimes throwing in a little extra feature, etc. And that's not a bad thing in principle, but I think this also explains why we have a million copycats of first-in-class titles like XCOM, the OG Baldur's Gate games, and the OG Diablos. But Fluttermind, the mad geniuses behind Moonring, thrived on focusing first and foremost on what the genre is supposed to deliver, rather than on how it's supposed to deliver it. The result is a game that ticks all the boxes of all the things we wish to see in an RPG, implemented with taste and loads of innovation, whilst also delivering on the user experience end of things with game mechanics that are intuitive and seamless. And never at the expense of challenge, because it just so happens that challenge is one of the things we want in our RPGs. So, what are those implicit promissory notes of the genre? What do we expect from RPGs? We want to be in the driver's seat of the experience, and in an RPG, this has to do largely with character progression, and that's the first thing Moonring nails. It puts you in the driver's seat of your character's progression in a way that ties seamlessly into the game's lore. Your character is dreamless, which is a special condition that some very rare people have known to have in the world of Moonring. By virtue of being dreamless, you have a part to play in the game's world. But this does not have Chosen One written all over it, as is usually the case in the genre. You are a regular Joe, and out of pure curiosity, wanderlust, and a little bit of happenstance, you start pulling the thread of the overarching mystery of the game. This mystery involves powerful deities that people worship all throughout the world of Caldera, and as you travel the world and try to unravel the game's mystery, you earn the favor of Caldera's gods. By performing certain actions, completing certain quests, and finding certain rare items known as devotional tears, you gain devotion with Caldera's gods, which is to say, points that you can spend on skills that are specific to the gods whose favor you earned. And I think this is brilliant, because in most other games, your character's progression system is detached from the game's lore. But in Moonring, your progression is tied to these godlike entities, and very early on in the game, you'll get the hint that these gods might be more than meets the eye, or less, and that earning their favor may not turn out to be a good thing, and this gives you a bit of an uncomfortable feeling, but it's very much by design, and also tremendously immersive. The skills themselves are super interesting. It blows my mind that 90% of what you do in this game, you do by pressing the arrow keys on your keyboard, which is to say that game mechanics are very extremely simple, but the game is anything but simplistic. These skills I tell you about work like tools that you can use to build your character around your own strategic vision. You can go for a summoner build, for example, and prioritize skills that allow you to invoke creatures to do your dirty work for you. And this effectively translates into a level of complexity that you wouldn't expect from such an uncomplicated game. How do they do it? With insanely varied enemies, elaborate level design, and puzzly conditions that you need to figure out. And this is pure genius, in my opinion. The feeling of adventure. Amongst other things, RPGs are a form of storytelling. That's why the hero's journey is as important in RPGs as it is in novels, films, and other forms of narrative-driven entertainment. Embarking upon a journey to save yourself, your people, the world, or the galaxy is pretty much a given in the genre, but it doesn't always work as well as it should in RPGs. In some cases, it doesn't even work at all. The feeling of adventure is the secret ingredient here, and that in turn has its own little secret. No turning back. Pulling the rug from under your main character is a good way to give you purpose. If you can't go back the way you came because something impedes it, or because time is of the essence and there's a lot at stake, you're probably off to a good start. Speaking of stakes, you should get the feeling that there's a lot to lose if your character doesn't succeed in his or her endeavor. Uncertainty, the feeling of being ill-prepared for the journey to come, or straight out not knowing what lies ahead, is crucial to the adventure aspect of the journey. The journey itself. It should go without saying that actually traveling to where you need to go is an important aspect of the adventure equation. You shouldn't be able to get there instantaneously. It should take time. There should be obstacles, unexpected events, and maybe even moments for you to reflect upon the whole purpose of the journey. And I think Moonring nails all of this. When you leave the comfort of your village and set out to Moon Upon Thoughts, which is the first stop in your adventure, you actually have to walk there. There's no auto-travel function with random, "you have been waylaid by enemies and must defend yourself" events, which I've always found a little bit disruptive of the feeling of adventure. You consume food during your travels, you gather resources, you hunt, you fight enemies, you help people who are in danger, you run into caves that you might want to explore, and more importantly, you have to avoid the amber clouds that are floating about, lest you lose your mind and fall prey to the madness that is rapidly engulfing the world of Caldera. And this is fantastic, because figuring out what these amber clouds are and where they come from is at the very core of the mystery aspect of the game, so it's only fitting that you yourself have to deal with this threat. You also have a camping function in this game, and it requires you to gather kindling to build camping kits. Kindling is a fairly scarce resource in the game, and you need a lot of it to build camping kits, and this makes each camping kit precious. There is fast travel in Moonring, but the locations that allow it are precious few, and they are a bit like mass relays and Mass Effect. Some insanely advanced civilization that is no longer around built them, and you need to figure out how to use them. All these features add to the adventure aspect of the game without making it overly punishing. And what's a good medieval fantasy RPG without a good, lengthy, and perilous dungeon? Dungeons are a slam dunk when it comes to the feeling of adventure in a fantasy RPG. They have been a staple of the genre since the very beginning, and there's a very good reason for it. There's nothing more adventurous than being trapped in a confined space, not being able to come back the way you came in, being forced to descend into the unknown, one floor after the other, not knowing how many are left, facing ever-increasing challenges with ever-dwindling resources, and haunted by the feeling all the way through that in the deep dark bowels of this godforsaken place, an impossibly evil ancient being with untold magical powers awaits. And Moonring has, I kid you not, some of the best dungeons there have ever been in a game. Relic Dungeons are the standout in this game. First, they check all the boxes I just mentioned. Can't go back the way you came until you complete the main objective? Check. Multiple floors? Check. Secret rooms with hidden epic loot? Check. Bad guys become tougher and resources become scarcer? Check. Larger than life being with untold magical powers who awaits at the end of the dungeon? Check. And second, like the rest of the game, they feel dangerous. Being able to save whenever you wish is generally regarded as a good thing in video games. Actually, I think real life needs this feature badly. And if I'm honest with you, I usually try to avoid games that don't let you save whenever you wish. But save scumming robs us of a good deal of the feeling of adventure and danger that we are supposed to get from these games. And this is especially true in dungeons. In Moonring, you can't save whenever you want. The game has an autosave feature, and when you die, you have to start over from the last checkpoint. This makes the adventure feel weightier because it compels you to carefully assess the level of threat in every situation you face. It also encourages you to be mindful of your inventory of consumables. I admit Relic Dungeons made me hate this feature of the game from time to time. I died a couple of times trying to fetch the Relic of the Great Wolf, for example, and both times I died near the end of the dungeon. But when I finally defeated the boss, my victory felt deserved, epic even, and I don't think that would have been the case if I had been able to save scum it all the way through. The moral of the story is that in Moonring, you have to be mindful of your items. This isn't a game in which you can hoard consumables by simply killing and looting everything that stands in your way on the yellow brick road of the game's quest. You can farm some items like food units and kindling, but you have to put time and effort into it. And items like potions and ammunition are scarce and expensive, and vendors have a limited number of items available for purchase. Their stock replenishes from time to time, but it also depletes over time, even if you're not the one buying out the stuff. And all of this has quite a significant impact on the adventure aspect of the game, because these are things that you are going to be thinking about at all times when you travel from one location to another, or when you venture forth into a dungeon. The feeling of immersion. We expect to get this feeling from every game, not just RPGs, but we are especially demanding when it comes to role-playing games. We want the story, the setting, every companion and NPC to be immersive. Heck, we even want the game's hub to be immersive whenever possible. And I think Moonring delivers in spades in this respect. I think you can all tell that this is no AAA title by any measure just by looking at the footage I'm showing. But broadly speaking, I think Fluttermind masterfully turned absolutely every limitation they had into an advantage, and the way in which they managed to make the game feel immersive is the best example of this. There are no cutscenes or voice dialogue lines in Moonring. There aren't even character portraits to speak of. And if I'm honest with you, I think the game's dialogue lines, and maybe even its story, would have not worked if this had been a AAA title. The best immersion is the one that happens inside your head. This is true of books and music, and it was also true of video games back in the 70s and 80s. Your mind is always going to connect the dots and complete the picture better than any artist ever will. Take for example Castlevania II Simon's Quest from 1988. This title had the minimum required written text for the game to make sense. And of course, Simon Belmont was quiet as a grave. And I found that game to be endlessly immersive, and it was because my brain added everything else that I felt needed to be added. Facial features, voice acting, extra dialogue, backgrounds for those characters who needed it, a whole origin story for Simon, etc. Fast forward to Castlevania Lament of Innocence for the PlayStation 2. This was not a bad game mechanically, not a bad game at all, but I just couldn't stomach the dialogue or the narration in that game. I hated the choice of aesthetic for the character models, and I felt the choices they made for the production of the soundtrack were completely off. In short, I found it immersion breaking to no end. This was not my Castlevania. Dialogue lines in Moonring are kept short and to the point, and I think the intent behind this design choice was to make the game immersive in an old-fashioned way. NPCs in Moonring tell you the bare minimum, and that's enough for you to know what you have to do next, and more importantly, it's enough for you to ask yourself every relevant question to the mystery of the game. What was the world like before the Cataclysm? What brought it about? Who were the Siberun? Were they magical or technologically advanced like the devotees of the Lords of Dust claim? Why are they no longer around? There seems to be one god missing. Why won't anyone talk about him? And therein lies the key of Moonring's immersion factor. These questions are going to be resonating in your mind as you progress through the game and find tiny snippets of information that allow you to connect even more dots. Even the soundtrack of the game, as minimalistic as it is, nails the vibe and the dramatic intention of every passage of the game all the way through. And this of course further adds to the immersion aspect of the game. Most RPGs these days shower you with quest markers and over-explain things to an extent that I find almost offensive to my intellect. And when I play these games, I often find myself drifting off to a point that I am no longer paying any attention to what the characters say. And why wouldn't I drift off, if all I need to do to complete all of the game's objectives is to go from one quest marker to the next until the credits roll? Heck, I can even speed click through entire dialogue sequences and still get the gist of what's going on. But Moonring never let me drift off. If I wanted to figure out the puzzles in the game, I had to keep my wits about me and read every text snippet in the game carefully. If I wanted to know where to go next, what to do, and who to talk to, I had to pay special attention to what every character had to say. When you engage NPCs in conversation in Moonring, they reveal clues about the topics they can tell you more about. These are highlighted as keywords and shown on the top of your screen. And this is an easy way to get relevant information about important things like how to kill a certain boss or how to access a certain place. But Moonring has a little extra gift for those who are truly immersed in the experience. If you pay close attention to what people have to say about other people, creatures, and places, you are going to be curious about some topics that haven't necessarily been highlighted. And surprise, surprise, many times, if your instincts are right, you will get a little extra treat if you ask the right question to the right person. And this seemingly insignificant treat goes such a long way. This is the kind of immersion that we used to get from our favorite games from back in the day. It's an old-fashioned feeling of accomplishment, and yet it feels so refreshing in this day and age. And last but not least, there's gameplay. Combat-wise, you have an insane array of possibilities that go from melee combat to ranged, to magic, to summons. You can hire followers to fight for you, or you can invest your money on gear and consumables. Speaking of gear, there's all sorts of weapons, armor, amulets, and magical items, and they all have different tactical advantages and weaknesses. Exploration-wise, you have a huge map filled with caves, ruins, and several other landmarks that go from big cities to hunting grounds to frightening swamps. Some of them you can access by foot, others require you to have a boat, and yet some others that you can only access by magical means. Inside the various dungeons of the game, there are secret rooms and passageways filled with awesome hidden items, and I would say at least 25% of the areas inside a dungeon aren't even mandatory. They're just there to sate your wanderlust. There are also puzzles in Moonring, and not only do they blend together with other aspects of the gameplay such as combat and exploration in a solid cohesive whole, but they are also seamlessly integrated into the mystery aspect of the game. Moonring is straight out
amazing,
guys. And not just because the devs managed to do so much with so little. Not just because it's a solid game that you can get for free. It's amazing because it brings back everything that was awesome about one of the most influential IPs in the realm of RPGs, and it's packed full with innovation, seamless user experience, and more importantly, fun. Seriously guys, don't just grab the game from Steam. I know most of you are going to do that because it's free. But play the damn thing. Make it jump over your whole backlog and just give it 2 hours. I am confident that that's all it's going to take for Moonring to draw you in like nobody's business. And if it doesn't, I personally will refund every penny you paid for the game. Having the mixed Mexican-Peruvian dish at my local favorite restaurant and following that with an all-nighter in the company of cereza.
Take me. Now.
Has been the best thing this year, and I can tell you it was not free at all. The next best thing has been Moonring, and that you can get for free. I'm leaving a link in the description section down below for you to get it. Huge shout out to Fluttermind for developing this game and putting it out there for free. You are aces in my book, buddies. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, thank you for watching all the way up until now. If you like what you are seeing on this channel, please consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell to avoid the usual YouTube shenanigans. Come check us out on Discord if you don't mind all the boomer talk that goes on there. I personally love it and wouldn't change it for anything. Share the video if you thought it was cool, but most importantly, never stop gaming, but don't let gaming get in the way of your hopes and dreams. Bye everyone.